Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, we are 1 week away. Y'all packed and ready to go, MJ?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. I just figured, I know how much you love the combine, that you would be already bags packed at the door, ready to walk out, hit the flight, but not yet. Not quite.
No, I kind of procrastinate on that stuff. I'll probably do that Monday evening. We're flying out Tuesday, and a week from today, we'll be on Radio Row.
And a programming note, we're actually going to do 3 shows next week from Indianapolis: Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So a bonus day on Thursday, and of course coverage all week long on azcardinals.com. But you just look at the coverage, and I know you saw this. The NFL sent out its press release on just the number of hours and the number of networks that are going to be out there covering stuff live. We know the NFL Network will have its usual coverage, but ABC now getting involved. Saturday, March 2nd, they'll have 2 hours of coverage of the quarterbacks and wide receivers. So, yes, this is a very, very big deal here in 2019.
Yeah, and, for those people that have watched it on TV over the years, and I've done that, maybe we get past the first day or the second day, and just because some of those guys you just don't know in rounds 4 to 7, but John Gruden was back into coaching, head coach of the Raiders, and then Mike Mayock, he decided to get out of the booth, and now he's the general manager of the Raiders. So it looks like, guys like Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks and Lance Zierlein, they're all going to get more opportunities. But, yeah, ABC, this thing's going prime time.
Yeah, they've got basically the college game day crew: Mel Kiper Jr., Todd McShay, Louis Riddick, Chris Mortensen, and Adam Schefter as well. And, of course, Cards Cover 2 from Indianapolis, live 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. All right, on this Wednesday afternoon, let's take off as we do here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Tell you what's ahead on the show today. The offensive philosophy under new head coach Kliff Kingsbury. What is it? How does Josh Rosen fit within it? Is there such a thing as a Kingsbury quarterback? We'll take you behind the scenes on Christian Kirk's rehab, and of course your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. We'll do that towards the end here on this afternoon. But first things first, the news of the day, and GM Steve Keim has done it again. He swooped in and signed a recently released player ahead of free agency. The latest, veteran tight end Charles Clay, a 1-year contract, and it comes 4 days after he was a salary cap casualty of the Bills. 4 seasons in Buffalo. Before that, 4 seasons in Miami. Was not great, we'll be honest. In 2018, it was a down year, 21 catches for 184 yards, no touchdowns in 13 games. But you just look at his production the previous 5 seasons, and the Cardinals are hoping that that's what they get. He had never caught fewer than 49 passes or had fewer than 2 touchdowns in the 5 seasons before last year.
We look at the tight end position going into the offseason, and the fact is that it was pretty thin. I mean, you got Gresham coming off an injury, and Clay's a guy about 6'3", 6'4", 255 pounds. I don't think he was a great fit for the Buffalo offense. And you start looking at the quarterbacks they had. Josh Allen, we know accuracy's an issue. They had Matt Barkley and Derek Anderson. They weren't able to run the football with Shady McCoy, so I don't think it was a good fit. And he was kind of nicked up. And the fact that he didn't want to test free agency, and to me, this creates depth. I would assume he's a starter on paper. I don't know how much we're going to see 2 tight end sets. We're going to get into what particular offense is going to look like, at least their base offense. But this guy can block. He can catch. He was productive, as you mentioned, the year before. So, right now they have Gresham under contract. Curious to see his number, cap number. I think they want him back. He's a great locker room guy. He didn't get targeted a lot last year. Not a lot of guys did. And then they got Phillips on. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's a blocking tight end. And then throw in Ricky Seals-Jones, who was disappointing last year, and he couldn't stay healthy. So, like they normally do, Craig, they'll bring 6 tight ends to camp. But on paper, you got to think right now the top 3 or top 4 would be you look at Clay here, Gresham, Phillips just as a blocking tight end, and then Ricky Seals-Jones. So some of these guys will be on the bubble if they only keep 3 tight ends going into the season.
Yeah, Clay just turned 30 years old, so you've got him under contract, Gresham under contract, Darrell Daniels, Ricky Seals-Jones, exclusive rights free agents, Phillips unrestricted free agents. So right now, just 2 tight ends on the roster. We'll see what the Cardinals do moving forward. But you look at Clay, it's a 1-year contract, just like Brooks Reed, a 1-year prove-it guy, someone who's been around. But we're seeing now here, this is the 3rd signing this month. You throw in Reed, you throw in Robert Alford, and now Clay. 3 players that you mentioned elected not to wait until free agency. They could sign with anybody, but they saw something, they heard something, they want to be a part of the Arizona Cardinals, and it's another need, maybe not high on your list, but certainly fills a hole that the Cardinals had going into the offseason.
Yeah, you got to check those boxes. I mean, you can't get everything done in a certain round or, the first part of free agency. You attack some of the needs, obviously, without overspending. So from that standpoint, I mean, they're already ahead of the game. Now, are these considered Keim signings?
Why not?
Yeah, I mean,
usually it's late in the summer, but
right.
I would even go early in the offseason.
Well, it's before the season has started.
That's true.
So we're not even till officially when you can make these signings. However, the way the rules are set up for the Cardinals, they can make these. And considering some of these guys they got are vested vets, meaning you've been in the league 4 more years, that you can sign them right away. Yeah, we always talk about a Keim signing maybe early in training camp.
Absolutely.
The John Abrahams, the Eric Winstons, and maybe a little sign of Trey Boston the first day of training camp. And then we wait for the waiver wire. So I think anything out of season is a Keim time signing.
And just to show you the aggressive nature thus far of Keim and his staff, saw this note on Pro Football Talk earlier today. Only 2 other players have signed with new teams this offseason. So a total of 5 players. The Cardinals have accounted for 3 of them. The other 2, center Spencer Long and running back Kareem Hunt. Long joined the Bills after he was cut by the Jets, and Hunt is now with the Browns after he was let go by the Chiefs. So as we've heard from Keim talking about being aggressive, well, words are one thing, actions are another, and the actions, we're seeing that here in January and February.
I mean, you take a look at Clay, and then you throw in Alford. I mean, that's 2 starters. And then I'm not going to write off a guy like Brooks Reed. I know he's going to play on teams, so that's 2.5 starters that you've acquired. And then throw in DJ Swearinger, who you claimed off waivers. Throw in Farrell Cooper. That's 4.5 starters.
Absolutely. Tanner Vallejo, who they claimed
Back
as
up.
well. Exactly.
Special teams guy.
Other news here on this Wednesday, if in case you might have missed it over the weekend, Josh Rosen is, in his words, okay. A minor traffic accident in Los Angeles. He posted the damage of his Tesla on his Instagram account. A pretty good-sized dent to the rear driver's side door. But, again, no injuries to report, which is good news. And, of course, Rosen now able to poke fun at himself and his car. But certainly at the time that this all happened, when it broke over the weekend, anytime one of your players or anyone gets involved in a vehicle accident, it's not good. But certainly when you have your star quarterback involved in a traffic accident, everything is all good. In fact, here is Kingsbury talking about what happened over the weekend to his quarterback.
A little bit nervous.
Yeah.
It's a nice car, though.
It was.
It's a nice car.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll get a new one, probably an upgrade even. But, yeah, just glad that he's okay and nobody got injured.
Coach on his very own podcast, Kingsbury Chronicle Podcast, every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. on Facebook, azcardinals.com if you missed any of this week's podcast, and we'll have more from Kingsbury in just a little bit.
Do you think if you're like one of the like Santan Ford is one of the great sponsors with the Arizona Cardinals, do you prefer to say, why don't you get a truck?
Anything that protects
Now,
you.
that Tesla car, it can drive on its own.
I'm not very familiar. I just know it's a very nice car that's a little bit out of my range.
I didn't see you too concerned when I got in an accident 2 weeks ago.
And now you're catching me off guard. I'm trying to think. Oh, that's right. You were rear-ended on the way to work.
That is correct.
You didn't post anything on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram?
I was just glad the lady that hit me, she was okay. Her airbag popped, and she looks like she hit her like chin on the steering wheel, so she was bleeding, and everything was okay. Now we just let the insurances take care of it. But thanks for the concern.
MJ, you all right?
I'm not the starting quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals.
It's your shows you just how much we think of you here on the level, the hierarchy. Well, there's Josh Rosen up here, and then there's Mike Jurecki.
Yeah, I get it.
It's been a week. How's your back feeling?
I
You
feel
okay?
fine.
All right.
I mean, I'm not one of those guys that has the neck brace in my back seat, and I get out of the car and go, let's call the lawyers. I didn't even call the police, and hopefully my insurance company's not listening. I did take a picture. But she probably would have got a ticket, and she was more like she was just so nervous that I was hurt and everything else. But we can carry out here now.
Now I remember we didn't make a big deal out of it because the last time you suffered an injury, it lasted like a month, and it was a simple throw from Larry Fitzgerald that hit you in the chest.
Speak for yourself. It wasn't a simple throw. It was like a fastball for about 20 yards away.
At least you caught it.
I did. If I would have dropped it, I never would have heard the end of that from Fitzy.
And we would have had to look for film as well.
Because
everything gets captured on those practice
fields.
we
are on the first field, so I know they were taping, or I don't know if they were taping stretching, but usually they do special teams, so I can go to the tape and confirm I caught the ball.
Let's go to the videotape. We need to look for that
Two
tape.
hands. Now, usually you catch the ball with your arms and you bring it into your chest.
Yeah, you waited until it hit the chest and then you caught
the
it.
force to be reckoned with, the ball was coming to my chest and it left a cross mark on my right shoulder.
You're pumping up fists just a little bit.
No, I'm not. He threw a touchdown pass this year.
Yeah, and according to Kurt Warner, it was a little bit wobbly and not that pretty.
Listen, Kurt Warner, he threw some wobbly balls, but the main thing was Larry was able to catch it. Warner didn't have a great throw on the field, but he was accurate. Details, Craig.
Speaking of Kurt Warner, it was a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Several years ago, we were doing a photo shoot in the TV studio, which used to be racquetball courts. So they got the real high ceilings. It's good space. But we were doing it with like smoke machines, and the lights were off except for just one camera key light on Kurt. And I was the one that he was going to throw the ball, and I was the one that had to catch it. And I had a hat on with my sunglasses on top of the hat. And Kurt just absolutely wound up and chucked it. And it's dark, and I couldn't see. Went right through my hands, hit the bill of my hat, and my sunglasses went flying straight up in the air. We have the tape somewhere, but I can't find it.
Let's go to the tape.
Yeah, I wish I could find it.
No, that'd be great.
But
Omo, you all right?
If I didn't...
Since I failed to ask MJ how he was doing, I'll ask you. Are you all right? You okay?
With what?
Well,
in general?
No, just the hat or that glasses.
Oh, was I okay then?
Yeah, you okay?
Yeah.
He didn't get rear-ended, though.
But if I didn't have the bill of the hat, didn't stop the ball,
it
that would have hit me right in the forehead.
Oh, the face, too.
Yeah. It was about forehead level, and I was
Thanks,
like,
Kurt.
Yeah. But he absolutely, I think he did that just as a joke, like I'm going to fire this
Make
thing.
sure you're awake.
Yeah.
Paying
Anyway,
attention.
that was my Kurt Warner
No, that was perfect
story.
timing.
Loved how we threw Kurt Warner under the bus here.
No,
on
I
this edition of
I
Cards
just
Cover
said
2.
I've seen some wobbly balls from Tom Brady. All right.
Keep digging that hole there, MJ. Keep digging that hole. All right, one last note here. The annual Cardinals Caravan presented by the Arizona Lottery returns later this month. They do it every offseason. Players, Big Red Cardinals cheerleaders hitting the road, visiting 4 Arizona cities. First stop is Yuma on February 27th. A great chance for those Cardinal fans who live outside Maricopa County to hang out with their favorite team. Prescott, Sholo, and Holbrook are the other stops. For more information, just go to azcardinals.com/canvas. Caravan, excuse me. You all right, MJ? I think we've lost MJ.
Proceed.
All right, we'll keep going here as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center on this Wednesday afternoon. Doing so in our Bose QC35s. Go to bose.com for more information. Another league-wide and also a little bit of a Cardinals note, but we are into the second day of a 2-week window that allows teams to designate franchise or transition players. Obviously, with franchise tag, sign an offer sheet with another team. If it's not matched, then it will cost the team that signs that player 2 first-round draft picks. Transition tag, same rules apply, just minus the draft pick compensation. Cardinals not expected to tag any one of their unrestricted free agents, though they have in the past. Most recent, Chandler Jones, who they didn't sign to a long-term contract, quarterback, Calais Campbell and Carlos Dansby was tagged twice, but the Cardinals expected to be very, very quiet all the way through March 5th.
Yeah, and that's good news. That means you ID your core moving forward, and you try to take care of them when they get done with that rookie contract, and obviously you IDs like players like Patrick Peterson, Larry Fitzgerald, and Patrick still has 2 years left on his deal, and he's still playing at a high level. And you throw in Fitz, he's going to play on 1-year deals. So, that's good news. Now, really, when the NFL started with the franchise tag, it was Pat Bowlen really wanted to keep John Elway, and it was just for quarterbacks. And now it's
quarterbacks, wide receivers. I don't think anyone foresaw this trickling down to like kickers.
No, but it's for every position now, and it goes up every year. So if you get the tag like maybe DeMarcus Lawrence going to get in Dallas, I mean, he's going to make money just like Le'Veon Bell. Unfortunately, he decided to sit out and not collect his coin this year. But, that's what you do. Now you run into a pinch and guy has an outstanding year and, he's past that 5th-year option and he's a free agent. Well, to me, that's how you protect your investment. I mean, free agents are great for plug-and-play guys, but really how you build your team is through the draft and undrafted free agents, and that's what the Cardinals have to do. They did it last year, not only in the first round, but throughout the first draft last year, the entire draft, I should say, excuse me, and then what they did in undrafted free agency. So that's really how you build your team. But obviously you get good players and you draft them high and you develop them and you coach them up for 4 or 5 years. You want to extend those guys. You want them to be part of your future. You don't want these guys to go somewhere else and win a championship. Now, if that's the case, you wish them luck. But while you have them, you got to utilize their upside.
Absolutely. Last week, if you remember, Kliff Kingsbury introduced his entire coaching staff to the media. We discussed his defensive staff on our last show. Today, the offensive staff. Here is some of their thoughts on the offensive philosophy under the new head coach.
You look at some of the concepts that he ran, and they're the same concepts as the NFL. It's just a different approach, how you get to them, the different things you might do in the run game to combine the run and the pass game, and just the style of play. So it's always fun and interesting to be in a new system.
People are going to be surprised by the amount of that we do run the ball. It's a big part of this offense, and in addition to the screen game, it's not just throwing it every down, and there's going to be a lot of physicality involved in this offense, and so it's been an exciting process, sitting down with everybody and putting it together from step one. And Coach has been very open-minded and very detailed and organized. He's got a vision of what he wants to do with this offense, and we're just trying to get it all together where it's sound.
Well, it's a different style than it's kind of evolving in the NFL. But as far as the schemes, how you get to those certain things, that's the different stuff. And it's neat to be a part of, and it's neat to see how he sees football differently than we traditionally have here.
We're going to put some things on the quarterback. We're going to try not to give him too much to process initially as he grows into the offense. Probably give him more responsibility for possibly changing routes at the line or getting us into a better play.
We're going to set out what we want to do, and then we're going to do it. And every day we're going to work at doing it, period.
For those listening to the podcast, we heard from passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach Tom Clements, offensive line coach Sean Kugler. We also heard from tight ends coach Steve Hyden and wide receivers coach David Rye. A lot to digest amongst those sound bites. Any one way you want to go over the other, MJ? Because there was a lot good stuff there, and I think one area that kind of jumped out and it kind of made news when it was said is what we heard from Kugler talking about just how much the run game is going to be in this offense, because perception is when Kingsbury comes in, hired as the head coach, that all of a sudden it's going to be the air raid. Texas Tech, you're going to throw 60, 70, 80 times a ball game, and there's not going to be a spot for David Johnson, at least coming out of the backfield, but it does not sound like that's going to be the case. And really, when you look at that offense in college, you can do it to a certain extent at the NFL level. You just can't do it all the time because it's not going to last. It's just not going to last, and it's not a smart choice, but you could have some of those concepts. And I think that's the big thing that you're hearing now is parts of that air raid offense, or what Kingsbury's version of what he did at Texas Tech is going to be transitioned at the NFL level.
I think my prediction is we'll see more RPOs, read pass options, and we'll see more of air raid. Air raid is 5 wide. Now, couldn't they come out in that the first play of the game? Sure. I mean, it's
just not going to be consistent 4 downs.
And you detailed it the day that he was hired, going into the when the announcement and we had the press conference the following day, was they threw the ball 55% and ran it 45%. And oh, by the way, they ran it for 140 yards per game. So listen, you got to protect your defense. There's no way you want to go out there. I do think that we're going to see a hurry up offense. That's going to allow Kingsbury to talk to Rosen in his headset until 15 seconds left. They're going to recognize things on defense that maybe they alternate formations and motion, and it's going to disallow the defense to make substitution patterns. So we're going to get into that. But, and Kugler to me was a home run. We talked about how valuable he was being not under contract, a free agent as a coach, a wanted man, so to speak. I like the fact that he said they're going to run the ball. They have to. I mean, David Johnson, you get this offensive line figured out, and then you obviously protect Rosen, get some weapons on the edge. But David Johnson, what do you have, 1,300 yards all-purpose last year maybe?
That sounds about right. He just missed 1,000 yards rushing.
940, 950, and then he had 400, maybe 50 yards. I mean, he did that in his sleep, basically.
And that's a down year and an offense that was awful, and he still almost hit 1,000 rushing yards and almost 1,400 all-purpose yards. So, not to double that in 2019, but
how about
should
15?
Be. Yes.
I'm throwing out. I used to throw out 15, 1,800 yards. It should be closer to 18 to 2,000 all-purpose yards. I mean, 2016 he had 20 touchdowns, 16 rushing, 4 receiving. I think he had 10 last year. Maybe close to it, 8 or 9 or 10. But what I'm saying is that's where it all starts. And then listen to Steve Hyde. This guy played in the NFL. He's a young coach. He's been around Arians. He's been around Mike McCoy and Byron Leftwich. And he said he sees things differently than we did. So, and then Rye, I'm curious to see, since he worked with good wide receivers, not number ones, but a lot of 2s and 3s and 4s, which the Cardinals have on their roster after Kirk and Fitz, what he could do with the wideouts. The fact that he had Aaron Rodgers, there's similar traits there, sidearm throws, back shoulder fades, rolling out of the pocket, cutting the field in half. So I really like this coaching staff. Now, we're going to judge this team what they do in the season. I mean, that's what their job is, to get these guys ready. As Bertrand always points out, Monday through Saturday, you rely on the coaching. On Sunday, the game plan's in, you rely on production and execution.
You brought up Josh Rosen. There's been a lot of talk, especially nationally, on whether or not Rosen fits this offense. By the way, there was not much talk about this, I believe, at least not that I can remember, when Kingsbury was first hired. All of this talk has been recently since, Kyler Murray says, I'm fully committed to football and pushing baseball to the side. So that's why all of this talk is because of one player, Kyler Murray. Cardinals do not hire Kliff Kingsbury, go through this entire process without Josh Rosen in mind. That is why Kingsbury was hired, because of what he could do, or what the Cardinals hope he can do with Rosen at quarterback. But that question about fit was something that was asked of Tom Clements last week.
Kliff likes to throw the ball, which Josh can do. He can move around, which we will do. So everything that you ask a quarterback to do, it looks like Josh can do it. And but once he gets here, we'll tailor it to his strengths as well as the strengths of the other guys around him.
And that word tailor is something that we've heard a lot. Kingsbury has brought it up as far as figuring out what our guys do well and keep doing it. If there is something within this offense that Rosen, Johnson, Fitzgerald, or whomever just doesn't get right away, all right, we'll put that on the back burner. What can we do right now? And that was something that David Rye mentioned. What do we want to be able to do week one? All right, let's master that. And I think what you're going to see is, and we've talked about it, there's going to be a lot more movement, whether it's running backs or wide receivers. Yes, Rosen needs to be able to run the football, but not be a ball carrier. And I hope people understand that distinction, because you can be able to move around the pocket, the threat of a run, but not tuck it and run. I don't think there's any team out there in the NFL that wants to see their quarterback tuck it and run every single possession, because you're going to kill your quarterback.
Yeah, it's like RG3 back in the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm concerned with Lamar Jackson because he's slight frame, but excuse me, I was choking here. Anyways, I'm good to go now.
Joking or choking?
I was joking, not joking. But anyways, see, when I look at a guy like Dwayne Haskins, I'm not going to label him as a runner. Now, can he run for 6 to 8 yards for a first down? Yes. Baker Mayfield, he's a runner. Okay, Patrick Mahomes, they're runners.
See, but
some guys get out of the pocket. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is a guy that will run 5 to 8 yards, but he's not a guy that's going to take off and try to make a first down if it's not there. They're going to slide first.
A runner meaning the play is called in the huddle, and your first option is to run the ball as the quarterback. Because I went back and I went back and looked at some running
not
numbers.
Necessarily. Let's say the call in the huddle is a pass play, but now they change formations. He notices the Mike linebacker, so he's trying to get the ball to him, but he's not going to force it. So he rolls out, and now he can run for 7 to 8 yards. To me, I would say Mike Vick was more of a scrambler. Fran Tarkenton, scrambler. Doug Flutie, scrambler. I think he could be a runner, but not to where it's going to rely on his legs. He's going to rely on his strength and his arm strength and what he sees defensively.
Where do you put Russell Wilson in that category?
Runner.
Okay, because I went back and this is just last year, because everyone's talking about the whole Kyler Murray.
Maybe a scrambler, Wilson. It's hard to define, but I'm saying their first option is not to run.
Okay. Rushing attempts. Now, with a quarterback, it's sometimes difficult because you scramble out of the pocket. You're forced to run. It wasn't a designed run. There's no category that says designed run, because it's hard when you look back at a play to figure out what it was. But Rosen had 23 rushing attempts. Patrick Mahomes, 60. Baker Mayfield, 39. Russell Wilson, 67. That was a career low. Now, Cam Newton, consistently in the 80s, 90s, and over 100.
And he's hurt. You brought up RG3. Had, I think it was like in the 80s his rookie year, and then it dropped down to the 30s, and then he got hurt. It's the threat of the run, and not to gain 8, 9, 10 yards, but just to give the defense a different look, even if it's 2 or 3 yards. But it's the mobility and the ability within the pocket to either step up, slide left, slide right, to gain more time. It's not all of a sudden you're bringing in or Kingsbury needs this quarterback to sit there, call a play in the huddle, and okay, I'm going to work out of the shotgun. This ball is snapped, and I'm running. That does not work in the NFL. Would you consider Murray more like Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson?
I see him,
Mike Vick,
someone who is more of a runner than.
What's the difference between Jackson and Lamar Jackson? Deshaun Watson, excuse me.
They're both carrying the ball as far as rushing attempts. They're both up there.
I think Watson's a better thrower, passer than Lamar Jackson.
And the other thing is you're seeing is all these guys we've talked about outside of Cam Newton, he's kind of the outlier here. But initially when they are on offense, it's coming out of college, you're running the ball because that's your instincts, as opposed to stay in the pocket. They're trying to get, what do we see? Russell Wilson, trying to make him more of a pocket passer. And if he is scrambling, it's buying time, not to run down the field.
Cam Newton in that national championship game when Auburn was on the goal line, they told him to take a knee, and he decided he was going to go for the score.
It's
Cam Newton.
Yeah. It's just, I don't buy the fact that you need a running quarterback or someone who can run within this system.
Listen, those days are over. You know, the Tom Brady's and Peyton Manning's and Carson Palmer. Now, if you can find one, great. Eventually you hope Josh Allen could be that guy. I think he had like 7 or 8, 9 rushing touchdowns this year. Josh Allen. If you can find a pocket passer, he's going to last a lot longer. But the trend is now the way the spread offense is and the RPOs. Now, listen, I prefer Josh to be in the gun because he could see the whole field. But if you want to utilize David Johnson and play action, I love the way that Rosen hides the ball because you have to be under center there. You have to really put the ball in the belly of the running back, pull it back out, turn your back on the defense, hide the ball by your hip, and then make that throw to a guy like Christian Kirk down the sideline. So, but I do think RPOs, because there it's a read. And listen, he would have to admit, well, the entire team has to play a lot smarter, but he's got to play smarter. But what he showed last year was toughness. So I'm not worried about him not sitting in there to take a hit. He went through a lot of hits. And I think them not making the playoffs gave him some time to go away. He went to Australia. He went back to school. And now he's going to get with some receivers in March and start throwing away for the facility. So clearly, Josh Rosen is the future.
Absolutely. And yesterday on the Kingsbury Chronicle podcast, Coach was asked point blank, is there such thing as a Kingsbury quarterback?
I take a lot of pride in adapting kind of our system to what those guys do best, and I think that's why we've had success offensively at the different places we've been, is we build it around them and make sure they're comfortable with what we do in our play calling and our scheme, and so I don't think that's too valid.
He said adapt. We heard Clements mention Taylor. It's all about what
Mesh.
do you do best, and you don't need a running quarterback, threat of a run, or a mobile quarterback, or someone who can buy time in the pocket. Aaron Rodgers, what would you consider him? Pocket pass? I mean, his rushing attempts, I was looking at last season. Again, these are rushing attempts, and it's hard. They don't define a designed run, but his attempts were up in the 80s, 90s.
I would call him an RPO quarterback.
Okay. And who was his guy that he leaned on ever since it was his second year in the league?
A gunslinger.
No. Who did Rodgers lean on? Who did he learn a lot from?
Favre?
Tom Clements.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is a young quarterback, yes.
Yeah, second year in the
but
league.
Who did Aaron Rodgers learn from initially? Brett Favre, too.
Yeah. You
learn more from a player, even though coaching helps. It's teaching, and because sometimes you get in bad habits. But, watching another guy do it, you're like, I can do that. I mean, his back shoulder fade is equal to, if not better than Brett Favre. His play action, I mean, you would thought Brett Favre didn't have the ball and he's got it down by his waist or his hip. So, yeah, you're right. Clemens has that experience, and he played the position. So, once again, you listen to somebody that played the position, even though coaching matters.
And you add in Kingsbury, former player, now coach. Clements, former player, now coach. Guys that are going to be around Rosen as soon as they're able to. They haven't had a chance. Clements hasn't had a chance to talk with Rosen, but what he has had a chance to do is he had an opportunity and has watched every single snap Rosen has taken and came away very impressed.
I was impressed. I hadn't seen him before that. I watched all of his every play that he was in the regular season. He can throw the ball. I was surprised that he moved as well as he did. I think just to what I saw in the film, he moves as well as Aaron. They're similar sizes. Josh may be a little bigger, but he has all the tools. He can make all the throws. You give him a clean pocket. He took off and ran a little bit to get some yards, but I think as you get more experience, he can look to throw before he takes off, because that's a big part of today's game, extending plays, letting the receivers work against the defender. So he has all the tools that you're looking for, no doubt.
And Clements said the magic words, clean pocket. I don't know how many times Rosen actually had a clean pocket and not, 4, 5, 6 seconds with which to throw the ball, but at least not feel like he needed to get the ball away quickly because he was going to get swallowed up.
And he's not afraid to throw in tight windows. He calls it, what does he call it, 60-40 ball?
Yeah.
Versus a 50-50 ball. And he's going to throw it where he thinks the receiver's going to catch him. Now, when given protection, we saw him drop some dimes on the Ricky Seals-Jones sideline play to Christian Kirk, sometimes Larry over the middle. But for the most part, I mean, once the game slows down for him, now he doesn't agree with that, but it's okay. He's gotten to this level, he'll be fine. Once the game slows down for him, but the fact is this offense is going to tailor to his smarts, meaning don't hold the ball more than 2.3 or 2.5, okay? If you do, bad things are going to happen. If not, just try to get out of bounds or throw it away. Punt if you have to. And then the fact that these plays are accelerated, these jet sweeps, bubble screens, slant passes, within 5 to 7 yards of the line of scrimmage, so he's not going to get a chance to hold on to the ball. Everything is read and react, get rid of the football. Get rid of the football. And that's what he's going to be hearing because this happens quick. You're not going to ask what they did for Carson Palmer, who was a great quarterback, put up big numbers in his career. 3 to 5 step drop. Now let's go 5 to 7. Let's the receivers get open 40 yards down the field. Now, granted, they benefited from big chunks of yards, which we know it's hard to go on 10, 12 play drives. But the fact is that Cardinal quarterbacks are hit 250 times in a hit, not sacked, hit in those back-to-back years. You're not going to have that when you get rid of the ball between 2-3 and 2-5.
And, of course, you just need to be able to learn all of this, and it's going to take some time, but the more confidence that Rosen gets within this offense, I think you'll see those throws.
The faster
completed.
he'll play.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden a tight window, which we might think is a tight window, is not because he's throwing to a particular spot where he knows his receiver is going to be, and all of a sudden it's a pass completed for 5 yards, and then that receiver takes it an additional 10 or 15 after the catch.
Well, let's give you a hypothetical. Receiver's running a route, and instead of him maybe going in, he's going to go out. Well, that's when he means 60-40. I'm going to throw it to his right side versus in where the receivers, and all of a sudden yards after catch. So that comes down with timing, trust, and making sure you know the route you're running. Now, obviously, they got to be on the same page. It could be a signal at the line. I want you to run an in route versus an out route. But if you do that, the ball's going to be there. He's not afraid, and he's accurate on tight throws.
And, yeah,
he's
more accurate than some of the other quarterbacks out there.
Yes, he's shown
and he
the
takes
ability.
more chances.
Now, last year's not a great example because what he was doing, whether he was in the gun or not, or play action, and I think he's really good at play action. I love the fact that he hides the ball, and he really looks up to Peyton Manning and, Aaron Rodgers, is the fact that he would look at the rush initially or look down the field. So he would find a guy open, possibly running maybe let's say a dig route, and then another one running the slant route. He would initially see that, and then the rush it'd be quick, less than 2.5. He would look down, and then when he looked up, that guy was covered. Okay, so that's when they say you're seeing ghosts or you're seeing shadows. So when he looked up, he thought that guy was still there, but he wasn't. He was covered, and that's where he threw some interceptions.
Finally, one other note on this offense. As we know, Clements, the passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, but does not carry the title of offensive coordinator. It was a question asked of Kingsbury last week on why there is no quote-unquote offensive coordinator.
I think year one for me, it just made sense to organize it this way, get a feel for the staff, the process is how it's going to go, and then we can kind of adjust it from there moving forward.
So perhaps maybe next season you will have that designation, but make no mistake, it's going to be Kingsbury who's calling the plays. He's, by all accounts, the offensive coordinator with some input from Clements and maybe even Saxon and Kugler, the entire offensive staff. But that is going to be his side of the ball, in which about what maybe you think 80% of his time game week is going to be occupied as far as what to do offensively against that week's opponent.
I've maintained he's only going to have 2 voices in his helmet throughout the course of the week. Now, obviously, he's not going to have a muzzle on when people can't talk to him or his earplugs where they can't hear him. I'm just saying when it comes to Tom Clements, he'll be his voice on the sidelines during the game. Kingsbury will have his ear, obviously, throughout the course of the week on game day, so you're not having too many cooks in the kitchen. You don't want to have too many voices. I'm sure he's been told, between McCoy, Leftwich, just different people he's worked with, this is the way we want to do it, but they're going to adapt to his strengths and what he does good and obviously, build off of that stuff. So I just like the fact he's not going to have 5 guys in his ear telling him what to do.
It is a Wednesday afternoon here on Cards Cover 2 as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, doing so in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information. Still to come, Bird Gang Sound Off. All your questions using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2. Before we hear from the Bird Gang, a reminder, tomorrow episode 2 of Cardinals Flight Plan debuts. More on that in a moment, but episode 1, there was some content that did not make the cut, including a health update on Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk walking by with a hobble. He might be going to the locker room right now. As for the field conditions, if we're looking at a game-winning field goal.
In Green Bay, when I got hurt, I was just on the backside of a play, and I went to cut on an out route, and when I tried to kind of rotate around, my left foot that was planted in the ground, I felt a big pop and immediately fell to the ground. Once something like that happens, you probably have a broken bone, and when I got up, I could feel the bones in my foot kind of shifting around, and I knew immediately it was broken. But we had about 2 minutes left in the game, and so I was trying to finish. I played about 3 more plays, and I think the play after the 2-minute warning, I tried to run out to get in my position and just couldn't even make it. And the pain was just so excruciating that when they snapped the ball, I took 1 step and then walked straight off. They took me in for x-rays, and sure enough, it was a clean break all the way through. And some of the most devastating news that I've had in my career, just knowing that my season was over. And I just felt like I was on a roll, and definitely wanted to finish out the season with my teammates, because I knew how hard it was, and just all the things we had already been through. With the injury that I had, it was about a 3-month recovery. I broke it right at the beginning of December, and I should be fully healthy by the end of February. That's the goal we're shooting for right now. The doctors say everything's going good. Rehab's going right. Each day, I'm just taking steps towards being healthy. I'm just being patient, kind of matured a lot from this whole experience, and taking my time and not trying to feel rushed, because there is no rush to get back. The goal is for me to be 100% when I step on the field in August, and so I'm just doing all the steps, doing all the things that I can to make sure, I'm the best me and the best version of myself to help this team win next year.
You hear him there saying healthy by the end of February. We're getting close to that, and I just wonder, I know he's going to be want to be on the field once the offseason program begins and the OTAs and minicamp, and I wonder if there might be a little bit of a battle, if you will, as far as I want to be out there to learn this offense, and the training staff saying, let's wait a little bit, but we're talking about, May when we're at that point, and that certainly is well after February. I just wonder if we see him during OTAs or minicamp.
Well, clearly you don't want any setbacks. Now, he said he's ahead of schedule. They have more information than we do. The main thing is maybe he practices one day, maybe at 80 or 90%, give him a day off, because they need him.
Yes.
He proved he can play in this league last year. And so when we start talking about receivers, after Larry, he's your best option, right now. So from that standpoint, no setbacks. The main thing is he needs to be ready when we get to the OTAs and the mandatory minicamp, because he's learning a new offense, probably have to learn all 3 wide receiver positions. But after we get through that part and you knock some of the rust off, we make sure he's ready for training camp, preseason, but more importantly, week 1. They need 16 weeks out of him.
Yeah, the reps this offseason are going to be huge for Christian Kirk, as well as everyone on that offensive side of the ball. Now, episode 2, Cardinals Flight Plan, titled Foundations, will look into Kingsbury's journey to becoming a NFL head coach, hiring a staff, and the Senior Bowl.
Once I got into coaching, this was the ultimate goal.
When the rest of the kids on the weekend would be out partying, whatever dates and all that, he would be up at the high school throwing a football into the net.
He'll be up here by 3:30 a.m. working, and he won't leave till much, much later in the evening, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and that's what he does. And he'll do it on vacation too.
You want to see these guys compete against guys that they haven't gone against, that's supposed to be the best of the best.
Wanted to bring in the right guys for our organization at this time, and I felt like we've done that.
What do we have, John? I know we got an outstanding running back, and so it starts with there.
It's my job to go play defense. So when they call for defense, we're going to go play defense, okay? And how long, doesn't matter.
I'm here to stay, baby.
Episode 2 drops at 6 p.m. tomorrow on Facebook Watch and YouTube. And, of course, you can catch all episodes on azcardinals.com after the fact. Looking forward to episode 2. Just a tremendous series of the Cardinals broadcasting department does, talking about Cardinals Flight Plan. Won an Emmy a year ago, and certainly expect good things this year as well. But going into the hiring, not only of the head coach, but Kingsbury staff, and then just behind the scenes as the Cardinals get ready for the draft, and then, of course, free agency leading into the offseason workout program, the OTAs, and mandatory minicamp. With that, how about we sound off, let the Bird Gang sound off here on this Wednesday using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, your questions via social media. We'll begin with Twitter, and this concerns what we started the show with, the addition of Charles Clay. User wants to know, who do you see the Cardinals tight end roster being for next season?
Good question. I mean, they're going to try to flood the position. They'll take 6 to camp. Gresham, he's got 2 years left on his deal. I think, based on him being healthy, they like to have him back. Great locker room guy. Really became a good blocker. But you got to look at his salary cap number, and, maybe they have to come to an agreement. But he's going to be on the roster, hopefully. You throw in now Charles Clay. I think he's going to be the starter. Ricky Seals-Jones, he's exclusive or restricted free agent, so they own his rights. And then John Phillips is the guy that they had brought in last year, and they like him possibly as a guy that provides depth, and he's a good blocker. But I do think they're going to bring 6 to training camp or off-season workouts.
Moving to Instagram, user wants to know, what position should the Cardinals go after in free agency?
Well, so far they've had a couple of defensive players, Alford and Reed, and then you throw in at least re-signing Larry, and then they had the tight end. So I would think still offensive line. I would still think a slot corner. Can never have enough defensive line. And then linebacker. We'll see what happens with Daniel Buchanan and Marcus Golden, and then you throw in Hassan Reddick. He's probably going to play inside. So obviously needs on both sides of the ball. But if I look on defense right now, D-line, slot corner, linebacker, and again, you can never have enough playmakers on defense.
Well, and you didn't mention wide receiver, but certainly a position that they would at least add, maybe not a number 1 or a number 2, but I'll steal your phrase, flood the position, because you need guys who can catch the ball.
Yeah, and there's some receivers out there. I do think they're going to double up. I think they'll draft one, and I think they'll sign one in free agency, and I hope Farrell Cooper can be one of your top 5 guys because he's going to be dressed on game day. Hopefully we see something out of Chad Williams, Trent Sherfield, Jalen Tolliver, Mitchell. So they're hoping, but you can't rely just on guys that haven't done it before, so you got to flood the position.
What about, this user brings up the possibility of a trade this offseason?
Yeah, trades are great. I mean, they pull off the trade for Chandler Jones, Carson Palmer. Yeah, there's 3 ways to build a roster: free agency, draft, and trades. So if there's somebody out there that they feel like they could take a flyer on, usually it's a guy in the last year of his contract, but you can still draft a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, and he's got more upside. And then look what they did last year. They brought in undrafted free agent wide receivers and Jalen Tolliver and Trent Sherfield, and they made the 53-man roster. So 3 ways to build a team, not just one.
Last question. I like this question. It might be something that we revisit closer towards training camp, because these are always fun. But user asks, who do you think will have a breakout year under the new coaching staff, offense or defense?
It's a great question. I don't want to say Christian Kirk, because maybe he had a breakout year this year until he got hurt. I mean, David Johnson could have a breakout year because he was pedestrian last year. Budda Baker going back to safety. Maybe a guy like, the fact that he's been a veteran, maybe Robert Alford is a breakout player because he's playing opposite of Patrick Peterson. So once they put the pads on, we get to training camp, we'll have a better understanding of that, because I do think you have to define roles, and some of those guys that I mentioned are going to have important roles on this football team.
I'll throw in, just as I was thinking about this as I was asking the question, but Chase Edmonds, who I know everyone was excited about when he was drafted, and then what we saw in training camp, it didn't quite see it a lot during the season, but you have him, David Johnson, whether they're sharing the backfield or one is split as a wide receiver or they're both out wide. Here's someone who operates very well in space.
Well, that's music to my ears, because that means David Johnson's as a receiver. Let's get both of these guys on the field together. Both can catch the ball. Both are decent in pass protection. Both can run between the tackles. I think Edmonds is a little more effective because he's a smaller guy. Maybe you can't see him. And then throw DJ Foster, who I think the Cardinals will retain. Don't think he's going to get a tender offer. And then TJ Logan. So it wouldn't surprise me if they added a back, but I like what you're saying, though. Chase Edmonds and David Johnson on the field together. To me, it's about matchups there.
I like the DJ Foster reference. That was a good one on your part. Appreciate everyone signing off here on this Wednesday. Again, we do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. Your questions via social media. And again, we'll do it all next week as well from Indianapolis. Shows Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at the NFL Combine. And with that, that's going to put a wrap on this edition of Cards Cover 2. Special thanks to those involved behind the scenes: Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, Brandon Natus, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. This has been Cards Cover 2. We'll check with you on Friday.